Hi, I wanted to talk to you about schizophrenia. I have paranoid schizophrenia. I don't know how long I had it for because it's hard to tell at certain moments, but it really kicked in when I was about 25. Uh, my first awareness of it, I was at work and I thought this man was always talking about me every day, and I told the boss that, he needs to stop, and that went on for weeks, and this bothered me a lot, and I thought I was going to go off, like angrily, and then I brought this poor man into the office, and he said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So skip forward 2 years later, I'm in my house, and I start hearing all these voices, and it's very scary, and I have this panic attack. I collapse in the kitchen floor and I hear these evil demonic voices. There's this church parking lot that has this alleyway, and I leave my home because I think my family is fucking with me at this moment because I don't know what's going on, and it's like 30 degrees below. And I remember holding the phone, like just shaking back and forth, hearing the voices still, wondering why am I still hearing these voices? I'm 20 feet away from my house, and I'm texting my sister saying, "You got to get me out of here! You got to get me out of here! You got to get me out of here!" And then I went to the hospital and I told them what was going on. And as I was doing that, the TV started talking to me and they started saying all this stuff. I mean, it was 3 years ago. I can't go into the exact detail about that. I can't remember everything, but it was scary as hell. It was a whole other alternate reality. And so they said, "Do you have paranoid schizophrenia? That's just what's going on with you." And at the same time, I was dealing with addiction. And I remember my mom was driving me down the road, and we were driving down the wrong side of the road. And I was thinking, why are we driving down the wrong side of the road? And she looked at me and she said, "Son, you have nothing but a deep, endless abyss ocean inside of you." And it goes on forever because I was going to go away from rehab and not go. And at that moment, I looked at her and I snapped out of my episode and I said, "All right, take me back." So I went to the hospital for 2 months, and man, I had an episode for 8 months. Heard the devil in the hallways, heard souls screaming, uh, all kinds of things. Saw angel in the cloud. The TV would not stop talking to me personally, to me, narrating my whole life. Um, I'll go into further detail about. I have a notebook journal about it, but I just wanted to give you uh, a rough draft of what. Excuse me for a moment. I got music in my ear because I'm a little nervous to talk without it. So yeah, and then after that, I came home and I was still in an episode after 2.5 months in the hospital. Which, by the way, the hospital, like I spent a month and a half with murderers and suicidal people and you name it, all kinds of walks of life. And I had conversations with them. And, what I learned is to don't judge because, most people do things out of impulse. And, I asked God, like, I never was a religious person, but after all this stuff happened, it's, it's freakishly like, what if? I get into other details in other videos, but what was I saying? Yeah, I had conversations with them, and they were just hurting. They were just hurting people. They wanted to reach out. They didn't understand. And at that time, I asked God. I was like, is evil innate in us? Is it just passed from generation to generation? Like, if I do this to you, you're gonna do it back. Or really, is it an evil force like the voices I hear that persuade things and such? And that's still a question I have to this day. Also, with my schizophrenia, I get very evil visions. It's very hard for me to calm down. A lot of times, I have to take medication for that, which helps a great deal, actually. And like, for instance, the visions, like, I'll get visions of or have a dream and it actually happens the next day. Like, if you told me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, whoa, I don't know. That's pretty hard to believe. But now that I've gone through it, it's insane. Like, I don't know how else to tell you. Like, I told somebody, they said, "Oh, you can take a lie detector test and still lie about it." I guess you would just have to experience it to know what's going on. Um, and like if I'm off my medication, it gets really bad. Like the voices amp up a million times, millions of voices. And this devil guy who calls himself the devil says he put a hex on me and all this stuff, and said that I'm in purgatory. And they say words I've never heard before, like um, and they said I was a student, that I was learning, and I have learned a lot since I've been aware that I'm schizophrenic, like body language, certain human connections. Like I feel things more than I used to. Like I can feel the pulls and pressures and vibrations, and I can feel intuitively what other people are feeling. I can't read their minds, not yet at least, but the way I go about that is I use it to help them, as opposed to sit there and try to play God with it, if you know what I mean. And also, like, if I don't take my medication, like, my mind will go on these puzzles, and like, I'll get so fascinated, like, how people will call other people like tinfoil hat, conspiracy theory. Like, my mind will, it will be so fixated on it, and I can't get away from it. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. I have to figure it out. I believe it's real in my mind at the time. And maybe some of that stuff is, but I realize in life, like, it's not worth spending your time over, because if this is it, and this is all we get, like, I don't want to waste my time doing all that. But I do want to make blogs about my schizophrenia and how I'm doing, and try to help other schizophrenics or even people just with other mental diseases and just problems, because I feel that the voices that I hear are they're more intelligent than anything I've ever known on this earth. Like they know, like that's another thing I deal with is precognition. That's why my name is precognition. Like they'll tell me the time before I even look at the time. Like they'll tell me the score of the game before I tell the score of the game. Tell me something that's going to happen. I wish they would tell me the damn lottery, but that hasn't happened. Like small stuff like that, like nothing big or anything like that. Um, and a lot of this stuff I can go in detail about if anybody has any questions of what I'm talking about. Like, what do you mean about this? What do you mean about that? Like I said, I have a journal and I can go and tell you. And the great thing about my schizophrenia is that I haven't had an episode in 4 months, and episodes are horrible. If there are good episodes in schizophrenia and then bad episodes. And what an episode is when you hear voices, you see the visions, and everything in your reality changes. It's almost like your imagination takes over and you're in a parallel universe. And yeah, I could be talking to you right now. You could be saying something like, "How about those Red Sox?" And what I hear in my mind is, "You're in purgatory." And did you see that baseball bat vision I just gave you? Did you see that cross in your brain that you just had? I mean, and it gets into deep detail. I've certain episodes I label like I had mind's eye, like where my head right here hurt for like 3 days straight. And I was up for like 3 days straight, and I could feel the push and the pull from people and the mental connection, and it was driving me nuts. And my voices, I are the evil ones at least, because I've had good episodes which are beautiful. But the bad ones, like they're sociopathic voices, like they'll take things that I'm not proud of in my life, or and they'll be 8 steps ahead of me, and they'll break me down and continue to onslaught to the point where I can't even breathe. And that's the other thing. They physically can torture you too. I've been suffocated, felt the pressure in my face. A lot of people say it's panic, but I know the difference. This is not the difference. Like one time I was walking down the street in my first episode before I went to the hospital, this van stopped in front of me. I had to stop too because I felt the push of that van on my body. Like these are things that I deal with. Like I hear other schizophrenics, like they see like bugs or dead people, or I've seen demons, I've seen angels, I've seen people's eyes light up and like fucking no offense, but they could be like not the best looking person, but all of a sudden be like gorgeous. Or like the way they look at you, and it really is true. Like what you see in the movies, like this is they've done their research. Like it glows, you can see the aura of it and all that. I probably only have 5 minutes left because YouTube won't record the rest of this. What else about schizophrenia can I tell you? Oh yeah, like you feel overwhelming if you're not on the right medications. Amount of paranoia that can drive you insane. Like I remember when at like age 20, I'm 31 now. At age 23, I was friend Pete, and I used to pace back and forth in the house, and I used to constantly look out the window, and he'd always say, "Keith, are you okay?" And at this time, I had no idea what was going on with me. And yeah, so but then it really blew up, and I became aware. And I was in denial for the longest time. Like I didn't want to be schizophrenic. I didn't want to hear this voice and see these visions or feel. And a lot of other thing about schizophrenia is like a lot of people will handle it different ways. Like I've had people at the hospital say, "Man, you handle it very well." Like because a lot of people like they'll take it too serious or think they actually are the devil or think they actually are God or they call that like God complex or devil syndrome or whatever. And a lot of times I sit there and fear when it does happen. Like sometimes, like the devil guy that bothers me when he comes around, he'll stand outside my door or like say things, and his voice is the deepest thing I've ever heard in my life. Man, I've had phone calls. Like I'd be on the phone, and all of a sudden, like they'll be in the next paragraph, and like that, and I didn't even know what happened in between what we were just talking about to that. And the whole world just changes. Like I've heard my own one episode with the mind's eye thing. Like I heard my own voice in my ear, and that's another thing about schizophrenia. Like you hear sounds, a sound coming from here in the average life, normal life, could be coming from over here when you're in an episode. Like it comes all around you, and so this leads me to the advice part. Um, like medications are very scary, and some of them can do a lot worse than better, actually. And I tried every single one, and the one that worked for me is Abilify, and it took my episodes down from a 10 out of 10 to about a 4 out of 10. Like I'll hear voices daily, but and I'll have episodes maybe like for 2 days or so, or um, it doesn't quite take away the anxiety or the fear. You need other medication for that, but that worked for me. But you also always have to go get your blood checked, and because it could do a lot of damage to your body. Unfortunately, they haven't. And the other thing about schizophrenia is no one knows why it exists. Psychologists, scientists, they don't know why. And I still question this as I journey in life. You know, it's funny because I've had so much proof of the spiritual realm, but yet my logic brain, if you want to call it that, still says, nah, like I'll forget about it 2 days later. But then I'll see miraculous things. I'll think things they happen, like, or just be thinking the same thing somebody else is thinking, or these little things in life, like that just blow your mind that you don't understand, like, and yeah, schizophrenia basically is like being on constant LSD without LSD, to best put it in a nutshell. So, anyways, I have to go because it's almost out of time. That's my blog about schizophrenia and what I, nutshell of what I've been through. And hopefully, I remain away from the darkness for a while, as I call it, because it's very scary. It's mental torture, it really is. It's probably worse than real torture. Not saying that that's not bad, but yeah. If you have any questions, comments, or if you're struggling with the same thing, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you. It's always nice to talk to people who have the same thing.